Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the 13th Fleet After Action Report. We are very happy to have you with us. We also want to take We have an interesting show tonight. Unfortunately, Admiral Tater is not going to be with us this evening, but we're looking forward to having him back the next show. But what we do have going on, we want to talk about deck building here in Malediction, and I am joined tonight by Ruben
Hey y'all.
and by Nick.
Everybody, how's it going?
And you'll notice we have another screen there that is specifically all about deck building. Nick, being an ambassador for Malediction, kind of has the line on it for us. So if you want to tell some folks about the deck builder.
The correct title is Herald, technically. I am an official Herald for Malediction.
What is a herald but an ambassador?
Well, hey, they actually have a in-lore process for becoming a Herald, but that's a shout out to another podcast if you want to go find out more about that.
Oh, he's shilling.
Yeah. So the play network that we're looking at here, now I know we're going to be building a deck in this tonight. However, Malediction is moving towards its own supported deck builder app. So this is not, I mean, by the time this video goes, this is live, but we don't know necessarily when they're going to be introducing or launching the new deck builder. It could be in like a week or two. So this is
that going to come online is that going to come online about the same time that the reinforcements are coming online?
We haven't heard necessarily. Some people probably know. I haven't heard, but they're. I think they may be wanting to, and if they haven't gotten it all worked out, it could just still be, kind of on the down low. They're not making any promises yet.
I mean, I think under promise, over deliver is a way better way to be running your new tabletop miniatures game company. Because
I agree.
Let me tell you,
yeah, I'm on board.
DTL
with that.
has been doing a terrible job.
And I'm looking at this screen with the deck builder, and I see Karma Mock out there, and I feel like this is probably the best time to go ahead and talk about what we had on Thursday. So in case anybody was wondering, I was the one that was playing Sigrith, and Joel was the one that was playing Karma Mock. And yeah, I kind of got toasted there just because of all the ranged shenanigans that Joel's Karma Mock deck had. Somebody rightly pointed out that I could have won that game had I, after killing the first creature, pulled back and gone into the wooded area like a smart player would. Sadly, I was not smart. I should have pulled back, but on the other hand, I was also kind of considering, is this going to be fun to watch? So, yeah, I had a lot of durability out on the board. I had a lot of tricks that could have been used very well and probably would have been used very well in another player's hands. But Joel did a remarkable job at baiting me, and he had a good formation set up to where as soon as I moved, he sniped me really bad.
Yes, that deck. I mean, and it was also a long game. You guys really had a very cautious approach. For one, he was running away from you, and for two, you were very apprehensive about getting overwatched by those sentinels, and so that just gave Joel more time to put things on the board. I think, grand scheme of things, of course, hindsight. I mean, we're playing. We're still doing like learn to plays and stuff. You guys are trying out decks for the first time. as soon as you saw him grab that like second husk, you should have just bolted across the table to deny him the time to set up. Now you didn't know he was going to get 3 sentinels on the table.
Yeah.
I didn't. Nobody knew that was going to happen. But when you like hid behind the terrain and he put a third arcane sentinel and he had 2 farsight ambushers, just in a clump, all of them have pinpoint so they can see through each other. And then he had 2 spirit shamans that can battle cry the sentinels to shoot additionally. I don't know what you're supposed to do about that. You have to just send something out to die. And if he's playing it smart, he doesn't overkill. He just hits it as hard as he needs to, because once you're exhausted, he can pink you off later. And then you still have more Overwatch. It was a brutal formation for Joel to get that fortress.
Yeah.
So it was a really interesting game.
Made me sad, but I played into it, and yes, Drippy, tactical retreat would be a better way to phrase it. Also, run like hell is applicable.
Step 1 is not getting shot. It's
Yes.
typically how it goes, especially if you're playing man with sword.
Yeah, I mean, I had a couple of things that gave me some range in there, but nothing on the same level as what Joel had out there, and nothing that could match his reach. He had a much greater reach than I did, and pinpoint just kind of screwed me over as far as putting stuff in the way. So
Yeah, and I played the Laundriel starter. Well, no, it was the deck you made, right, Nick?
Yeah, it was mostly a secret deck. There was a couple tweaks
Mostly
to it.
the starter. Okay.
Yep.
She's pretty fun. I like one of the art of the cards. I'm at the point in the game where I'm trying to figure out which art style I really prefer, because if you know anything about miniatures games, you're going to be spending
A lot of
as much
working
time,
on it.
if not more, building and painting and doing the hobby side of it as you are playing the actual game. So you really need to find that balance between a play style that works how you like to play the game and miniatures that really speak to you and you get a good vibe with them, right? Because you spend so much time away from the game table doing all the hobby part of it that both sides really need to sync up. And the I don't remember the name of the card, but it's that like mechanical lancer dude out of
Orange Lancer. Yep.
yeah, like it just looks damn cool. I just like how it looks. I don't know. There's something about golem magic-y stuff that I think it looks cool. And I like a lot of
Yep.
the white cards, like it's crusaders and soldiers and dudes with shields and like, oh yeah, like humanity stuff. So clearly I like that stuff. It's obvious, and all my friends know that I like that archetype. So that with the magic was interesting. Although I think I reviewed the game like mentally, because I can pretty much memorize all the piece positions really well and like visualize them really well. And I feel like I just kind of like bunkered up when I should have just like moved away from Savannah and like kept shooting at her instead of like castling and trying to like win the shootout with the tempo player. And the deck doesn't have the damage to really support that when the other deck is fast enough to go and interact with your second husk.
Yeah.
And you can't like, and the range stuff is designed to be just efficient enough to kill one thing, but not like burst a bunch of stuff off the table, which is interesting. But I still think that ranged control is probably the strongest archetype, just because also you don't get hit when you shoot them, and mobility wins the tabletop miniatures game. So do those. So clearly, I like that stuff, and I play Space Marines, Ultramarines, and they're all about kind of like shooting you down and then hitting you with the counter melee piece and just being mobile. So it's a pretty one-to-one kind of link and play style.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and for full context, Savannah was playing an Ingor deck, and so when Ruben says maybe I shouldn't have engaged in melee, it was because there was like 2 boar explosions and a flesh ripper. So it was just a lot
I
of.
shot one of the damn boars, and it didn't get to me because I read the card and I was like, reading the card explains the card, and that card is dangerous. So we need to shoot.
Yeah,
that.
those boars wrecked me in our 2v2 game.
I hate to say it, Chris, but that was a legendary game.
Yeah,
That was all. You were in the worst position. You got blasted so much.
I'm just apparently not good at games.
So
I am the
that was
punching bag of the group. So let's talk about what goes into building a deck in Malediction. What are some of the basics here?
So
Please actually tell me all the basics, Nick. I don't know how to build a deck.
it's-
I'm gonna state again because this is my second time doing Malediction podcast stuff.
yeah.
I'm
So
a dude who doesn't know anything about Malediction. I do not play this game that much. I pretend to know stuff about Magic. So I'm just here for vibe takes. Nick, tell me how to build a deck.
we'll get in. So you've played it. We've talked about the game as far as the basics of playing it. So we're not going to go into all the details on like what a unit is, what a spell is. But in this game, so you're going to build a 30 to 50 card deck that's going to represent your warband. Now, there's going to be 3 cards that you're going to choose that don't count as part of the 30. And that's going to be your Seeker, your Legacy, and your Terrain card. There's also a side deck, but we're going to cover that a little bit later because it's important. It's an important part of the game and a big part of the strategy. So your
the side
Seeker
deck doesn't count as your 50?
it doesn't count as your 50. It's a 7-card side deck that's off to the side. So
the Magic
your,
players consider that your sideboard.
side, yeah. It's a. I honestly, I think I prefer the way Malediction does side deck to sideboarding in Magic, but I didn't play a lot of competitive Magic, so maybe it's just me. But starting forward, the first thing you have to do is pick a Seeker. Your Seeker is going to determine which factions you can pick from, and every Seeker is going to come with a legacy, so it's not going to be a separate choice. So if you pick Oric Evenhand, you always get the Will of the Forge legacy with him.
Do we
That's all.
know of any potential design space where they're going to have like same Seeker, different legacies? Or because I know right now they're all 1-to-1, right?
Right. We have, so I've talked with it. I've actually been on other podcasts. We've talked about it and speculated as well. Nothing's come down, from on high yet, but we do know there's 2 new Seekers that are going to be released this year. And the roadmap is 10 new Seekers next year. Now, I've said publicly many times for everybody listening that I really want to see something happen and twist the legacies, right? Maybe there's a corruption in the Malediction. All the legacies get a second component. So now you can take Sigurith and you can take the Andravon, but then you can take the corrupted Andravon. Maybe it has a high risk, high reward, different ability.
Okay.
Right. So it still fits the same theme of the Seeker, but it has like you can push it, and if you push it too hard, maybe there's a backlash to it. But it gives you kind of a different play style with the same Seekers.
And it's also a good balance lever to pull. If something's a little too out of whack, you can say, well, for this season, if you like do seasons of the game, you can say, well, you only use this legacy instead of this one. So,
right.
Interested to see what they do with that, because that's a very strong nexus of story development and game design.
Yeah, and terrain. Right now, there's 4 terrain pieces. Terrain's not locked by faction, so anybody can take any terrain piece, but that just comes with your deck. In the roadmap, the wording they used was in 2027. They said like this season's terrain, and so we don't know if that's going to be is the old terrain going to get changed or what that means. That we don't know what that looks like yet. We haven't seen any kind of spoilers for 2027 yet. We're still working on spoilers for stuff this year. But there's a lot of design potential for new stuff. The game is still very young, so I'm really excited to see the directions it can take. The team seems incredibly excited for new stuff. Everybody you talk to in this game, in the community, is like ready to talk about it. So
who doesn't like new stuff? I mean, new stuff is awesome.
Gamers do love their new shinies.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I would especially like some new terrain, though. I think we're a little bit limited in the terrain field right now.
Sure. Yeah, and we're going to talk about terrain in this episode when we talk about more of our fine-tuning our deck here. But we're going to come back to that because we want to build the deck before we decide what terrain we want to put for the deck. But we do have to pick a Seeker first. And the Seeker's going to come with a Legacy. Now, all the Seekers and Legacies are kind of designed to work together, um, sometimes more directly than others. But right now, we're in a good place where there really are no bad Seekers. There are Seekers that are less popular than others, and there are Seekers that have been harder to get. Leanna and Griza have been like sold out all year, so a lot of people have been really wanting to play them, haven't had the chance to. But should be getting new content for that.
I don't know about this whole put poor Karma Mock in like F tier and then all Seekers are viable, but
Just because if you have to rate all 10 of them, Karma Mock's in a rough spot, deck building wise. However, I would think the reinforcement packs that are launching next week are going to give Car a lot of new life.
I think it just comes down to the color pair being weird to design for, personally.
Yep. So let's pick a Seeker, and we're going to start building the deck here. To keep it simple, I think we'll stick with some Sigrith, and we'll just stick with the Andravon. So Sigrith is going to be our Seeker. Your Seeker is going to be your centerpiece, typically, in your deck. She's your commander, your most expensive unit, most of the time, your most powerful unit. There's going to be exceptions. Everything we say tonight is going to have exceptions. But Sigrith is a great Seeker to have because you always want to get her out. And she works really well with her kit. Now, combat stat-wise, she has just a typical, very standard Seeker, melee profile. 5 bonus to hit, really good. Hits most of the time. 5/3 damage is very common. Most Seekers hit around 5/3. No range because she's melee. 5 speed because she's kind of heavy. 15 defense. It's one of the highest defenses on a Seeker, and 18 hit points. Tied for the second highest hit points. She's a melee piece. Sigurd decks are typically built with her as kind of a spearhead, with a lot of support units buffing her, protecting her, and taking hits for her, so she can do the main damage. The Andravon legacy that pairs with her allows you to discard cards to prevent damage, and then whenever you prevent damage, you get free melee. This applies to all of your units, and so you stack this with her Aura Fortitude, which improves your unit's defense around her, and you create this aura bubble of very affordable, tanky units. So now we got to think about what units we want to take in our deck. When you're thinking about your units, typically you want to aim around 15 units. Now, your deck can be anywhere from 30 to 50 cards. I'm going to be talking as if we're building a 30-card deck. The reason we want to aim closer to 30 is to improve reliability of the cards we draw. There are a lot of good cards. If you fill your deck with all the good cards, you're never going to see all of them pop off. So we really want to pick close to 30 cards so we have reliability on the cards we really, really want to see every game we play.
Yeah,
So if I have a really good card,
this is an aspect that really carries over for Magic players when you take a look at it and okay, yes, you can build beyond the minimum size of the deck, but when you do that, the odds decrease of you drawing the card that you need for that moment in time. I think you had some numbers there, Nick.
Yeah, so we can look at this on a little graph here. So if you have in your deck, we're looking at on this table from 30 to 50, your likelihood of seeing a specific card in your deck increases. Obviously, the more the game goes on, you'll draw more cards. If you have 2 specific cards, maybe a couple of unique units that are like your big power pieces, you want to see one of those units in this game. If you have no additional card draw or access to, which some Seekers don't have a lot of access to card draw, your odds of seeing them in a 30-card deck are much better than seeing them in a 50-card deck. And so, obviously, anybody who, again, has played a card game, it makes sense. The bigger your deck, the less likely you are to see specific cards. If you're looking for just one card, if you only bring one big bomb unit, your odds of seeing them in a game are crazy low.
Yeah.
For a game that you really want to build a strategy around. So we can use this. This is just a quick, function. But this table shows us, generally speaking, as we increase our deck size, we're going to have a much lower chance of seeing cards, even up to round 8, which is really unheard of in Malediction. These games usually end around rounds 4 and 5.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
So if I
it's
have
just
a card that's really strong, what
Mhm.
keeps me from just making my whole deck that card?
So you are only allowed to have certain copies, specific copies of certain cards, and that's going to be based on the rank of the card. So in the top left corner, this color on the I'm pointing at my screen like you can see my fingers. The color of the diamond of their echo cost is going to be the rank of the card. Now all seekers are legendary, so they're red. You can only have one seeker in your deck, so that there's not really a whole lot there to talk about. But when we start looking at other units, let this load, the colors will change. So these bronze diamonds are basic units. You can have 3 copies of this card in your deck. Silver is when we get elite. You can have 2 copies of this unit in your deck. And then your gold units are uniques. You only have 1 of this unit in your deck. So if your strategy revolves around getting a unique card out on the table, if you don't have access to card draw, or at least a lot of card draw, you're likely to not see them every game. So for this exercise, I want us to look at building maybe 2 bomb units just to increase our chances of maybe seeing one a game.
Okay. Because based on the math, you would presuppose that you're looking to really build like 3-ish solid 1-of bombs into your deck.
Yep.
And
so
I'm looking at these numbers and I'm really considering that if you can be in a faction where you have more access to card draw, I wonder if that offsets you going to 35 cards. It makes me curious.
from what I've seen, there's not a lot of card draw period in.
correct.
Mm-hmm. It just makes me wonder if you have a play set of a basic card draw, does that offset the math enough to allow you to take another uncommon like the 2-of and be at 35 and keep the same like general
curve probability.
General probability, yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about card draw right
if that
now.
even matters, right? If that even matters.
So card draw in this game is very limited, and that's, I think, incredibly by design. There's a couple of legacies that have inherent card draw. So Laundriel, whenever you play a spell that prevents, cancels, or redirects an effect, you get to look at the top card of your deck. You can choose to keep it on top or place it at the bottom. And then the second of that is when you look at a card on top of your deck. If it's a spell, you can draw it. Otherwise, you put it back on top of the deck and gain 2 echo. So this is a source of card draw. One of the most reliable sources of card draw, because you can have a lot of spells that do these 3 effects, fill your deck with them, and then whenever your opponent does something, you can play a spell and then riff the top card of your deck and search. In contrast to that, you have
Also, the card draw in this game is like ponder and looting effects, if you know like magic parlance. So it's not really draw and add cards to your hand and like gain a card advantage. It's draw cards, discard cards. So it's a cycling mechanic, which keeps the power of it also kind of in check.
Right. There's very, very few cards that allow you to draw more than 1 card, and they are like, I think they're all uniques. Off the top of my head, trying to think of them. I'm not going to worry about wasting too much time trying to search for them, but yeah, there's very few cards that draw more than 1 card at a time. And then you have things like Hunter's Sense, which is a basic red spell that lets you look at the top 3 cards, pick 1, add it to your hand, and then you shuffle the other 2 back. So it doesn't really increase your hand size; it just replaces itself. And so that's one thing we see a lot with this game is you replace cards in your hand. And then there's also going to be a lot of tutoring effects, which I think is really interesting because tutoring, I say tutoring, it's a magic term. Searching your deck for a card and adding it to your hand is very powerful in a game that involves a random deck of cards. But what they do in this game is every time you're allowed to search your deck for a card, it's always going to be a basic or an elite unit. There's really I think only like 2 cards that let you search your deck for kind of like no limits, but they're limited by what you're searching for. So, for example, I'm looking at Soul Stitcher. This is for Countess Morida. Whenever you defeat an enemy unit, search your deck for a basic or elite fallen unit, put in your hand. Morida and Ingor are probably two of the, and Landriel actually is the other one, are the 3 seekers that probably have the biggest risk of decking themselves with card draw. And even still,
Oh, is decking a lose condition?
yes, yeah. If you run out of cards, you're out.
Wow,
Right.
I learned something already. Interesting.
So,
Ooh.
but even then, we still only see them go into like 34, 35 cards. It's still not like you're building a 40 card deck.
So that means there is an actual theoretical cap on game length outside of chess clocks and round timers.
Right. It's
Ooh,
just
intriguing.
even in an 8-round game, if you don't have additional card draw, you're not seeing 30 cards. You're seeing 21 of your 30 card deck. And like I said, 8 rounds is a long game.
If any of the devs are watching this, I just want to throw out there, please do not put any mill effects in this game.
You don't want to play mill, Chris? Come on.
I do not want to play mill, no.
There's very little hand hate in this game. Drown in Oblivion is your opponent has to discard a random card. And this is a black, Swift spell. There's very little ways to target your opponent's deck or their hand directly.
And this is a good thing.
Again, yeah, it's a good thing. It keeps interaction from being a completely negative play experience. Even playing against like blue counter spells, as frustrating it can get, there's only so many spells that can counter. Right now, there's 3 counter spells. Well, 5 technically that you can put. Landriel can have 5 cards in her deck that can actually counter a spell, and that's the most you can do in like right now for that kind of counter spell play. So as far as negative play experiences go, the game's not. It doesn't feel too bad.
I would say not getting blown up by Cataclysm is a positive play.
And that's why you keep those.
But
yeah, we'll get into we can get into that when I talk about spell cards specifically when we're going to build our spell section of our deck. But let's get back to units here. We're about half hour in. So there's no official terms or anything in game. I'm going to break units into a couple different groups. The first one you want to have in your deck is what I call relic runners. These are going to be mobile units. They usually have some kind of evasive ability, and they tend to be cheap. So I'm going to bring up like the Spellbound Gargoyle is a great example for blue because it has speed 8. It has flying, which allows it to ignore units and obstacles, and it has the nimble keyword, which means it doesn't provoke retaliation when it moves. And so because in one turn it can move 16 inches, it can get to a husk pretty much anywhere on your half of the board, grab a relic on turn 1, and then fly away, and your opponent can't stop them. If they get to them, your gargoyle can just fly away or can continue to contest the husk, but your opponent can't really lock them down because they're nimble. And so if you have access to these, most factions, really white is, the Order of the Shattered is kind of the only faction right now that doesn't have great.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't recall having anything in my Sigrith deck that would work terribly well on that note.
Right, and that's kind of what sets Sigrith apart from these others. Because even looking at these basic units right here, if you guys are looking at the screen, Landriel has the Warden's Lancer that has speed 8. Auric has the Twin Blade Skirmisher, which has speed 8. Sigrith is working at speed 5 and speed 6 on her fast units. But this is also where terrain can come into play, because terrain can give you speed boosts on your units. But since we don't really have access to a fast unit for Sigrith, we're going to be really limited in our relic runners. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick a couple of these Warfront commanders, add them to our deck. And the reason this is going to help us with our relic runner problem is because they have battle cry. So what they can do is, instead of moving or attacking themselves, they can command a nearby unit to take a move or an attack instead. And so this allows you to get one of your 6-speed basic units and extra movement out of their turn, out of sequence, and help them get further down the table. So in that case, what we'll do is we'll also take a few Bright Hull Custodians, because they have speed 6, our 2 Warford Commanders. And this is going to kind of help us fill out our Relic Runner situation here.
Besides the fact that the
So are
Bright
you
Hull
typically playing one
Custodians
playset
are
of?
the Bright Hull Custodians are also really, really good at getting you extra attacks.
Yes. And the last thing we could consider is she's expensive, so I wouldn't put her in the Relic Runner category. But the Herald Salvation is basically our only access to a speed 8 unit, and she does have flying. So she still kind of falls into that category. However, being an 8 cost, you don't really want her overextending and grabbing a husk on turn 1, which is where you would want these faster mobile units to really get out there, grab it, and get back. So we'll come back to Herald, but I just wanted to kind of show her off right now. So right now
So
we've
you
got
usually playing one playset of your Relic Runner, like your flanker, your skirmish.
Yeah, I would bring, if I had access to them, I would bring 2. So I'd have about 6 units, 5 to 6 units.
That are more like skirmish flank pieces.
Because then you can get you have, if you have 6 of them in your deck, you have a pretty good chance of seeing one of them on turn 1.
Mm-hmm. And if you draw 2, then you can play both wings.
You can play both wings, and your Relic Runners also will feed into the next category, which is going to be our fodder or frontline units. So you also need to consider that your opponent is going to get 2 relics typically. You're going to get 2 relics, and then you have to fight for your remaining 20 points. And you do that on a frontline. We want to have units that can take the fight, that can pressure our opponent without overcommitting resources. Now, with Sigrith, we can take a little bit more expensive units because with our legacy and Sigrith herself supporting, our front line can be pretty tanky, pretty solid. So we're going to take some support units here. Some Knight of Astaris. And then for frontline, I'm actually going to take these Valkyr's Priests. Now, they don't fall unnecessary to your frontline category, but they have the heal ability, they have range, and they can pray. And so these are going to be our defensive support units that are going to help keep our frontline and fodder healthy so that we can outlast the opponent's, the opponent wave coming in. So right now, we're looking at 2 elite units and then 9 basic units. So depending on your style, with Sigrith, this is where I want to stop with basic units. We may look at crossbows, but at this point, we want to start looking at elite and unique units to fill out the rest of our units. Now, if you're doing more of a swarm or aggressive playstyle, you might take another 3, maybe even 6 more basic units. It's not uncommon for people like Engor and Morda to have like 15 basic units because their decks thrive on them really churning out a lot of units quickly, a lot of cheap units. If you have a handful of units, you have to be able to have the Echo to play all of it. And so you can either do that with Echo Generation, which is very rare in this game, or by having really cheap units that you can just play. But for us, Sigrith tends to be more on the elite side, so we're going to take fewer units with higher costs. Now, we have some ways of holding the front line. We have ways of supporting our units together. Bright Hull Custodian, of course, can protect nearby units. Knight of Stars has actual shield wall and protection, which buff nearby units defensively. And your Priest has your healing, and it also has Prey, which helps you get more Echo to play your more expensive units. We're going to look at our really good damage pieces. Now, we could look at the crossbow for damage, because their range expert gives them extra damage. And they have range 8. So for this section of our unit building, having units with range means we have more ability to hit our opponent once all of the units start hitting each other in the middle of the board. Ranged units tend to be squishier, and the Order has fewer access to them than we do in like the Legion or the Conclave. Blue has a ton of really powerful ranged units. So really, a lot of this would be more on them. They would fill their deck with ranged squishy units behind a big wall of meat bags.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing also for the order is that we do not have pinpoint.
Right. We have no access to pinpoint, so you don't want to go too heavy on range because you're going to be blocking all your shots. Um, so we could take those for our damage. Um, we can also look at the Armor Revenant as a good source of cheap damage because of their 4-2 and counterattack and cleave. They have everything about them allows them to get additional damage out. And so, because of your ability to prevent the damage to them, they are a little tankier than most basic units would be. And at 5 cost, they're not super cheap, but they're cheap enough that you can get them out on the table. For this particular deck, I'm going to stick with the crossbows. And that's going to be our damage support. We also have to consider what role our Seeker is playing in our battle strategy. Sigrith is a melee piece, but she's also a high damage piece. She's also a high defense piece. And so her being kind of our center point of our entire combat plan means that everything's going to be around her, supporting her. And so she's going to fall into kind of what I want to talk about our next category, which is going to be our bombs. Now, bomb is not a bad thing, especially if you're coming from Magic, you'll probably be familiar with it. We're not talking about something that sucks. We're talking about something that when it goes off, your opponent's in a very bad situation. And so some Seekers can be bombs. Most of the time it's going to be a unique unit that once it hits the table, your opponent has to have an answer for it or they're going to have a bad time. Sigrith falls in that category, in my opinion, because she's hard to put down between her legacy and her naturally high defense and hit points. And because of her smite ability, she can knock things out really quickly. She already has high attack bonus. When she smites, she gets +2. That's a +7 total accuracy to hit somebody. Most unit defenses in this game are sitting around 12 and 13, which means she hits on 6s against most units in this game. When she hits, she'll do a total of 10 damage, which will drop most basic units in this game in one shot. Even Seekers, the strongest, the highest hit point units in this game are Thundersteps and Auric at 20 hit points. So Sigrith in one action can drop Thundersteps down to 10. The other thing about her smite is that 5 extra damage applies to her grazes and critical grazes. And so even if you roll 1, you're doing 6 damage. This is one of the only sources in the game that actually applies damage to a critical graze. If you ever see the damage symbol, which is called power in this game. So like, for example, this is the crossbowman has +2 power on ranged attacks. That does not apply to critical grazes. But when they use the wording extra damage, that applies to critical grazes. So Sigrith being our centerpiece is going to be one of our bombs. We want to have one more bomb in here. And so our options are going to be we're going to look at some of our unique cards. And we have a couple of options here. Rogarth is, I think, the Order's best bomb. He's fast. He's got 8 speed. He has dash, which allows him to do a free move. Cleave, which lets him get free attacks. And then Devastate, which is, you don't build around it because you can't guarantee critical hits, but it's just bonus damage. And he hits for 6. So he's a spooky unit. When he hits the table, again, like I said, when a bomb hits the table, everything stops for a moment, and your opponent has to think, okay, what's my answer to this? How do I deal with this? Effer and Herald are also good, but with this particular deck that we're building, I think we want to go with Rogarth.
Okay.
So that's 15 units. For Sigrith, I would say this is probably a good place to be. You don't want to go too heavy on units because all of your units are expensive. Your cheapest unit here is your crossbow at 3, and your next one is your priest at 4. Everything else is 5 or higher.
Now, there is that potential, though, that getting extra units in there also gives you something to bid for initiative.
Yep. Yes. Yeah, and also dead units in your hand can be used for your legacy. Sigrith has the ability to discard cards to prevent damage, so don't feel bad about holding on to 2 Knights of Astarius because that can just be 3 prevention that might trigger the legacy. So, but again, you always want to have the option to play every card you draw. So you want to have the option to discard. You don't necessarily want to bank on having a handful of units that you can't afford to play that you're just going to discard with your legacy. You'd rather have spell cards that are cheap enough for you to play in support of your units while having the option to discard if you have to. Yeah. So we've got a pretty basic Sigrith deck building here. Now we're going to take a look at spells. So spells are going to fall into a couple categories as well. And what I mean by this is most legacies in this game synergize with spells that you have access to. Sigrith has access to spells that prevent damage. That's what triggers her legacy. Retribution allows you to make free attack when you prevent damage to 0. So if you have a spell that allows you to prevent damage, that has a direct synergy with her legacy. Laundriel, spells that counter, prevent, or redirect, trigger her legacy. Trying to think. Vorndal, damage dealing spells triggers his legacy. Polynor, he's the supreme mage. His whole legacy and his secret card both allow you to play more spells. Thundersteps doesn't really care. Liana lets you play cheaper spells, and your units get spell strike, so you get bonus damage on spells. Griza, when you heal your units, they take with spell cards. Your opponents take burst damage based on the cost of the healing spell. So, like most Seekers have legacies that interact with your spells in your deck in some capacity. So we want to pick our main suite of spells that are going to help us trigger our legacy more reliably without overcommitting to our gimmick. So I'm going to look for 5 to 6 spells that are going to help us trigger our legacy. Obviously, I'm holding up Ward of Valkaris. We're going to go ahead and just add these to the deck. 2 spells that allow you to prevent 5 damage. Boom. Easy peasy. The next one we're going to look at as the unique version of that, which is Shield of Andraven, which is prevent 10 damage to an ally from a single source. This can be great because it can counter some of the biggest spell cards in the game. As you might see Legion play Unmake, which is single target 10 damage. It sucks. You don't want to see that come out. It erases units off the table because your opponent's not going to hit somebody fresh with 10 damage. They're going to wait till your Seeker's low and finish them with a single target spell that you can't react to. So preventing 10 damage helps you from Unmake, helps you from a Thundersteps charge. It helps you from a lot of just burst damage sources.
What?
So
Thundersteps likes to charge?
Yeah, he'll hurt. he will hurt. So that's 3 cards that directly will help us trigger our legacy more quickly. Another spell that can do that is the Echo of Sarsten, which lets you, whenever you suffer damage from a attack, specifically an attack, not just any source, you can play this, search your deck for a card, a basic or elite spell, and play it. Play it for free. So this can be, hey, I don't have Ward of Valkaris in my hand right now, but I need to prevent 5 damage, but I'm holding Echo of Sarsten. It costs the same as Ward of Valkaris, so it's a really easy replacement. It can also be other spells, which is why this is a really common spell to see in a lot of older
it's
decks.
basically the perfect tutor.
You see it a lot in order decks because of it can be anything when you need it. And so that puts us at 4 spells that can help us directly trigger our legacy. Now, other spells that can help us, we're not really seeing anything here.
Yeah, it's important to note when you're looking at Sigrith for this that healing is different from preventing damage.
Yeah.
You know, there are a lot of cards in the order deck that in the order stockpile there that will heal, but that's not going to quite get you what you're after.
Yeah, because there's no basic cards that prevent damage, we don't really have any more spell cards that we can look at. But also because our legacy allows us to discard cards, we don't really need more spells that prevent damage directly. We can always discard something for 3. So now we've got 4 spells added to our deck. We can move on to our support spells. Every deck is going to have a central theme. or a play style. For Sigrid, we're looking at elite units playing defensively. We're going to ball up, we're going to support each other, and we're going to keep our units alive. A swarm aggro deck might have a ton of cheap units that run out and die. Your spells should reflect your playstyle. Playing a bunch of spells, putting a bunch of spells in a swarm deck that is going to send a lot of cheap units forward, and then you're spending a lot of echo keeping these cheap units alive that your opponent eventually kills, maybe in a single attack more, is not, you're not getting as much value out of it. Whereas stacking like a bunch of burn spells into a deck that's already into like say you're trying to do a bunch of burn spells with a style that's a lot more control, like the legacy and everything is a lot more controlling, like Laundriel. You're kind of working against your style. Having some burn is great, but if everything is burned, your control deck's never going to pop off, and you're not really messing your synergy. We're going to look at supporting cards that are going to help keep our units alive and keep our elite tanky units on the table. This is where we get healing spells. We're also going to leverage our typically what we're going to have is fewer activations, so we're going to leverage that with things like Valor's Command. So this is a spell, it's a channel spell that allows us to perform an attack. Now this can be Sigrid. This can be Rogarth. So it's just an ally performs attack. So by adding this to our deck, we have a cheap spell that will allow us to leverage our action disadvantage to a more even playing field, and keep in mind every spell we add at this point can also prevent 3 damage when we need it to. In addition, Second Wind can be useful when we're getting swarmed. But I want to come back for this for side deck card, because this is not going to do us any good if we're playing against another elite deck that's not necessarily going to be filling the table with units. So Healing Light, we're going to throw 3 of those on there, recovers 5 health. When your opponent is hitting your Seeker especially, that are wearing your units down, you get a chance to breathe, get a spell in there, heal them back up.
They also make good discard fodder, because I mean, you're getting 5 for 2, or you're getting 3 for 0.
Exactly. And then the next thing we'll look at is we're going to add Convoke, which allows us to search our deck for a basic unit, put it in our hand, and shuffle. Again, this is 3 damage prevention, or it can help us pull a priest on turn 1. It can help us pull a Brighthold Custodian on turn 2. It just kind of depends on what you need. It can be another unit. And so this is a way for you to get more units into your hand when you're not drawing into them naturally. So think of this as a card that is just any of your basic units. So instead of having 15, we actually have 18 units we're trying to pull from.
Yeah, you have 18 chances to get one of your whatever of your 15 you want. So you can always set up your preferred board state as long as you draw one of them.
Exactly.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, the last thing we're going to talk about with spells are going to be our bombs. Again, just like with the units, these are going to be the spells that are going to be game changers, things that we don't want to get counterspelled. So we're going to want to try to play our spells, make sure our opponent's down on Echo, not give them a chance to counter if they have access to it. Right now, only Conclave, only blue has counterspell. So if you're not playing somebody who has a splash of blue in their deck, you don't have to worry about them countering your spell. But the big one for Sigrid is Enforce Balance. It's a swift spell. You can play it at any point. It's the 3 cost. An opponent discards 1 card at a time until they have the same number of cards in hand in you. You have the ability to discard your own cards to prevent damage. It is not hard for Sigrid to empty her hand, and then her last card being Enforce Balance, to then force her opponent to discard down to 0.
Why is the rules text of this 1 at a time? Are there triggers or something?
There can be. There is definitely time for a swift spell. It also can be to allow timing for other things. So, for example, Ingor's Legacy triggers on a discard. And so it could just say 1 at a time, so that there's not this question
Each
of like
trigger actually happens because there's not like a stack or anything.
right.
Okay.
You go like well, you discard your whole hand, and then the Ingor player goes, "That's 10 echo because I had 5 cards," and then you go, "Well, no, you have to discard all of them, so you only get 2 for
It
discarding."
only triggers one time.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
So it could
I
just
was
be
kinda
clarifying
curious.
text. Yep.
Makes sense.
But enforce
And
balance.
future proofs.
It future proof exactly. So enforce balance is you hate seeing it. Everybody playing Sigrith will hold a counter spell in their hand until they see enforce balance. It's there.
And
the
then I
other
make
big
them
bomb,
sad by not having it.
well, I know it's funny to me that you don't have it. Now the other thing I wouldn't necessarily classify as a bomb, but we still need one more card in our deck. We're gonna go ahead and grab Rites of Healing. It can be a game changer because you get to choose either 10 health on 1 or 5 health on 3 allies. This can be a huge boon because as your knights are protecting and taking damage, let's say you have 2 knights surrounding Sigrith. Every time Sigrith takes damage, your knights are allowed to use protection once per activation. So Sigrith hits for 4 damage. This knight takes it. Sigrith gets hit again for 3 damage. That other knight takes it. Then a different activation goes on. We move on to the next turn. Different activation, another 2 attacks coming on Sigrith. She gets hit for 4 more damage. The first knight takes it. Second one, Sigrith just takes it herself. She's got 18 hit points. Then you can follow up with Rites of Healing and heal all 3 units back up to basically full and mitigate your opponent's like 2 activations worth of attacking in 1 spell card.
Yeah, just
Yeah,
wanted
like
to throw out
15
something else
points
to if there are any devs watching, Sigrith decks need some kind of taunt effect.
Oh. Okay.
That would be awesome.
No.
Yes.
Don't listen to him. Now, a generic taunt item. That would be interesting.
Yeah, I'd be down for that.
And like 15 heal is like 5 units worth of attacks. That's a lot. I don't know why people don't think that card is a bomb. That's like the action attrition economics of the game seem to be so far as I felt. Now I've not been stepped on by thundersteps.
It is a timing.
Take about 3 to 5.
It is a timing issue in my perspective because typically when you have somebody who is dishing out damage, they are focusing on one target to get that target down. So in order to get to the point where healing 3 allies for 5 health is good, it sometimes is a little bit questionable.
And it's also, this is a channel spell, so you have to play it on your turn or on your
it's not
activation.
swift.
Which means your opponent can hit Sigrith for like, it's not uncommon for a lot of units to be able to hit for 6 or more damage. So somebody hits Sigrith, she's already been hit, she's already been wounded, maybe your knight's dead. So you decide I'm going to take it on Sigrith, and I'm going to play Rites of Healing immediately on my next activation to heal her 10. And your opponent goes, and then I follow with Unmake. 10 damage, kill Sigrith immediately with no chance to respond. Rites of Healing can definitely be incredible. And you can also use the timing aggressively. Maybe you need to move Sigrith, provoke retaliation. Your opponent goes, oh, cool. I'm going to make a free attack on you, and I'm hit you for 5 more damage. And you say, that's fine, because I planned on healing anyway, but now Sigrith is where I need her to be. You can use it more aggressively, but it's a big game changer. If it was a swift spell, it'd
probably be too good.
It'd be too good if it was swift. But because it's only a channel, it can be. There's a lot of situations that can happen where it ends up being in your hand after you really wish you could have used it.
I mean,
you can always
start holding it, and you pay 0 to stop 3, or you pay 4 to stop 10 to 15. Which it just seems efficient.
We're putting it in the deck. It's a good card. And there's a lot of other cards here. Like I said, we're just kind of going through and building something quickly here. So we've done all this. We have 15 units, 15 spells. We didn't really talk about attachments, but attachments they're hard to talk about.
I I do more with attachments in Sigrith decks than spells, but part of that is Great Shield is really good in Sigrith decks because it's one cost and you're spending so much for your units that having that one cost kind of is easy to spend. Plus, it makes Shield Wall better.
Yeah, the issue with like Sigrith specifically that I have with deck building with attachments is that you don't have access to card draw, and so this is a card that you sit there and you go, I'm going to equip this to a unit. What else could it have been? And that's kind of where most people are at with deck building with items, and specifically, Oric gets around that because of his legacy. Whenever you play an item, you get to draw a card, so his items will always replace themselves. Right now, you see a lot of the same few items. We see Feral Gauntlets pop up in certain builds. We see Horned Helms pop up a lot because it's just flat +1 damage for 2. Scout's Boots, people like to put down in Thunder Steps because it gives you hit and run. So he has cleave and hit and run because then when he kills something, he can make a free move and a free attack, which creates the Thunder Steps train where he gets to attack, kill something, make a move, cleave, attack, kill something, make a move, cleave, attack, kill something.
No.
So Scout's Boots, you see that in Thunder Steps. You see the Lantern sometimes with Griza. I know, Chris, you're on the Lantern with Sigrith to trigger the phasing.
Yeah. The only issue with that is that the Umberland Lantern has to go on a very specific unit. It has to go on the what are they called? The basic unit.
You like to put them on
the Brighthold Custodians.
Yeah.
You put them on Brighthold Custodians, and it's just mean. It is one of the most mean combinations in the game, in my opinion.
They're fun. It's a fun way to do it. That's also why I run Custodians with my Griza deck with the Umberland Lantern, because then I can also Spirit Master my Custodians. But for this deck, we're going to skip attachments and just kind of focus on more of the idea of like building a synergistic deck with the units and spells. But now we need to talk about the terrain we're choosing. So now that we have a deck plan, we have our elite units. They tend to be a little slower. They're tanky. We have spells that are going to protect them, heal them, and help us move the fight a little bit. We have to look at terrain. We can choose any terrain we want to. But knowing what we talked about, let's start with the Flesh Gardens. Does not work for us. We don't want the Flesh Gardens. We have no way to leverage the terrain damage because we don't have any access to pushing or pulling or knockback. So this is just creating hazardous terrain that we can't really utilize. And we one thing to consider with terrain is universal. You're going to put it out. You're going to put your husks out, and you and your opponent are going to take turns, bidding on the deployment zone. Every terrain choice you make, you have to know, what is my opponent likely to do? If you can't use your terrain, then you're always at disadvantage because your opponent either can't use the terrain either, or they can use the terrain.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job setting up my terrain on Thursday.
Yeah, it's the hardest part of the game. I think learning is the terrain placement, which is why I feel like demos and learn to play. We set that stuff up for you guys just to make it easy, because you don't want to be screwed by a deployment decision when you didn't really understand what you were doing. But I'm going to go and say we're not taking the Flesh Gardens because they're not going to do anything for us, and if anything, they're going to put us in a rough situation. Starcast Halls are great. It's the most popular terrain choice across all Seeker decks right now because it reduces your channel spell cost by 1. It saves you Echo. Anything that can save you Echo in this game is going to be more flexibility and versatility for you to play more spells, summon more units. It also gets flipped all the time. Your opponent can use it just as much as you can, and they're going to. If you see blue terrain on the table, everybody's going to be sending a unit over there to play their cheap spells. So because we don't have quite as many channel spells, and we also reserve the ability to discard our cards, we don't necessarily want to be giving our opponent discounts that we aren't going to be using as much. Yeah. We might save 2 Echo with all of these spells, but we have a lot of swift spells that don't benefit from Starcast terrain. So like Ward doesn't benefit, Shield doesn't benefit, Echo doesn't benefit. Healing Light benefits, but it's only a 2 cost. So we're saving 1 Echo on a 2 cost. Thousand Command benefits, it's a 2 cost. We're saving 1 Echo on a 2 cost. Convoke benefits, it's a 2 cost. We're saving 1 Echo. So like our opponent's going to likely get more Echo back from our terrain. So we're not going to take Starcast Halls. Deathstrike Mire and Astarian Pathways. Neither of these are going to be bad choices. This is going to come down to what you really want to play. Pathways is the more straightforward one. All your units get +2 speed when you're on it. This allows you to get your speed 5 units up the board faster and helps us with that issue like we had with not really having relic runners that can make use of getting across to like a 16-inch husk on turn 1. This can help with that. We can have like our Bright Hook Custodian. We can have our commander push something onto the terrain. They start their turn there and get that extra +2 speed. So Pathways is always going to be good. It's, I think, probably the most neutral terrain pick because your opponent can get it too, but when your opponent is already bringing faster units, they're not likely to see as much benefit from the +2 speed.
Yeah. This one is easier to be turned upon you, but
this one is getting really popular for melee armies because of the line of sight blocking. Mm-hmm. You can't get shot, you can't get charged as you approach. However, like you saw, Chris, you can get ambushed in this terrain. So this is one of those choices that it's a really high risk, high reward. If you have complete control over where you put this terrain, and so if you go into this game with Deathstrike Mire on a Sigrid deck, hoping to use it to block your approach, and your opponent is playing Legion or Primal Blood, you have to suspect that they could have ambush units. And if they do, they will drop wherever you put a husk. So if that's the case, you want to put the terrain in positions more neutrally in the middle of the board that your opponent doesn't get like a backfield advantage on. And then when you're placing husks, don't put them in the terrain. You know, put them outside the terrain, put them a movement away, so that if your opponent ambushes and then moves the husk, maybe they're setting themselves up for a charge. Maybe, you know, you can contest that husk more easily. So this is really kind of a flavor choice here. For this deck, I would pick the Pathways, just because we don't have really any speedy units. Except maybe if we get Rogarth out in turn 1. But like I said, I don't like getting my unique unit out in turn 1 if I can help it. Because it opens them up to a lot of single target spells from the beginning of the game. So we picked Pathways. We've got a deck built. This is completely legal. We're ready to play it. Now, side decks. Side deck is where I really love the strategy of this game. Because now we have cards that are going to be specific for our matchup. In Malediction, when you see your opponent's Seeker, you're allowed to side deck up 7 cards. So you show up at the table, you say, "Hey, I'm playing Sigrid." And they go, "Hi, I'm playing Griza." Now you have the option to pull your deck apart, pull cards out of your side deck, switch them with cards in your main deck, and play the game. So you can bring cards to deal with specific Seekers and specific matchups that might be unfavorable to you. This is where I would put cards like Second Wind. Second Wind allows you to refresh a unit as long as your opponent has more enemies on the battlefield than you. If you're going up against Laundriel or Sigrith, you're not likely to have less units. You're probably going to have about the same, you know, sitting at 3 or 4 units when the big fight starts happening. And this can end up being a dead card. Or again, at best, it's a discard to prevent 3 damage. But if you're playing against Morida or Vorndal or Ingor, you're likely going to see 6 or 7 units popping out in turn 3. This is a great side deck card because it lets you flip that activation advantage back to your favor.
Can you add creatures to your side deck?
Yes, you can.
Well, units or whatever they're called.
Yeah, you can add any unit or add any card to your side deck.
Okay.
And so this can also be where we might see something like, let's see, what spells do we want in here?
You say that, but I want to check on one rule here. Can you add terrain to your side deck?
No, you cannot.
Okay.
Um, we might pick something like Decree of Alcaris that can always also come in. It's a very expensive card, but it allows you to bounce a unit from your hand and flip them with something of equal rank. This can be really powerful for getting a relic runner that's out there that gets tied down against another fast unit, especially against things like Primal Blood will have like, speed 8, speed 10 units all over the place. Blue has a lot of access to spells that give them free movement and extra additional speed. Decree of Alcaris can help you get a cheap unit, grab a relic, and then flip them with a fresh unit that equips that relic, but isn't about to die in the same capacity.
Yeah.
The other thing that you can do with this is that when you deploy it, they come in refreshed. So this also can help you flip that activation advantage by activating a unit, attacking with it twice, and then immediately decreeing it back up with a fresh unit that gets to activate again. So it's a good card to have side deck. You don't always want to have it because it's expensive. You may not have a lot of cases to use it. But against certain matchups, it can be really helpful against red decks, blue decks that are going to have really fast units or a lot of burn spells in general.
Well, while that doesn't give us the full side deck, that does give us the basic idea on how the side deck works, and this has pretty much been the way that you go about constructing a deck. Keep in mind math matters. So yeah, while you can build with more cards, less cards is often going to be better.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, let's bounce that back there, and I want to thank you guys for doing the show tonight. Next matchup we will have on Thursday. We haven't determined who's playing yet, so we'll just have to see how things go. Maybe we'll actually get Ruben on camera this time.
Oh no. I guess I'll have to go tinker with a deck so I can play something that I've actually built.
That sounds like a plan. We'll let that happen then, and we'll figure out who your opponent will be later.
Guess I have to go cook.
All right. So thank you, Ruben. Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Have a good night.
All right. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
So with that, I want to thank you guys for joining the show. We had a really great show this evening. Went a little bit over. Hope you guys don't mind. But we will be 6:30 on Thursday. We will have another Malediction matchup. Sounds like Ruben's going to be on the stream. So hopefully you guys will join us for that. And have a wonderful, wonderful evening.